Daf Yomi Tractate Bava, page 114a, part 2. Before Shabbos, we left off at Amar Ula. Actually, right after Amar Ula, Amar Le Abaya L'Rabba. Okay, Abaya said to Rabba, Amar Le Abaya L'Rabba Lo Tiflog Ale De'ula. Abaya said to Rabba, do not disagree with Ula, as the formation of the halakha that we learned in the Mishnah is in accordance with his opinion. The Mishnah states that according to Rabbi Shimon, thought does not render the hides of a thief susceptible to ritual impurity because the owners did not despair of retrieving them, and therefore the hides do not belong to the thief. This indicates that the reason the thought of the thief does not render the hides susceptible to ritual impurity is that the owners did not despair of retrieving them. But if the owners had despaired of retrieving them, then these items would be his, and his thoughts would render the hides susceptible to ritual impurity. Rabbah said to him, we learn the Mishnah as saying, a thief cannot render the hides susceptible to ritual impurity because there is no true despair for owners of stolen goods, even if they state they have despaired. We learn in the Mishnah here that if customs collectors took one's donkey and replaced it with a donkey taken from another Jew, or if bandits took his garment and replaced it with a garment taken from another Jew, he may keep these items because the owners despaired of retrieving them when they were stolen. The Gemara asks, whose opinion is expressed in this Mishnah? If it is in accordance with the rabbis who hold that the owner despairs only in the case of a thief who steals secretly, it is difficult, because the Mishnah indicates that the victim of a robber also despairs of retrieving his property, as in the case of a customs collector. And if it is in accordance with Rabbi Shimon, who holds that the owner despairs only in the case of a robber, it is difficult because the Mishnah indicates that the victim of a thief also despairs of retrieving his property, as in the case of bandits. Granted, according to Ula, who says that all agree that if it is known that the owners despaired, the individual in possession of the items acquires them. Here too, it is possible to explain the Mishnah is discussing a case where it is known that the owners despaired, and all agree that the recipient of the stolen property may keep it. But according to Rabbah, who says that even in cases where it is known that the owners despaired, there is also a dispute in accordance with whose opinion is this Mishnah written. It is not in accordance with the opinion of the rabbis, and it is not in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. The Gemara answers that the Mishnah is discussing a case of an armed bandit who is similar to a robber in that he steals using force and aggression. And it is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Shimon, who holds that the victim of a robber despairs of recovering his property. The Gemara asks, if so, this is identical to the case of a robber. That is, the customs collector, and there is no reason for the Mishnah to teach the same halacha twice. The Gemara answers that the Mishnah in fact teaches the halacha with regard to two different types of robbers, the customs collector and the armed bandit. The Gemara suggests another proof with regard to the dispute between Ula and Rabbah. Come and hear the following Braita with regard to a thief a robber and one who forces another to sell him something, their consecrated items are considered consecrated, and their truma, the portion of the produce designated for the priest, is considered truma, and their tithes are considered tithes. The Gemara asks, whose opinion is expressed in this Braita? If it is in accordance with the rabbis, it is difficult because the Braita assumes that even the victim of a robber despairs of retrieving his property, as seen from the halakha, that the robber's act of consecration or separation of truma or tithes is valid. This contradicts the opinion of the rabbis, who hold that the thoughts of a robber do not render the hides susceptible to ritual impurity because he is not considered the owner of the hides. Conversely, if it is in accordance with Rabbi Shimon, it is difficult because the Braita assumes that the victim of a thief despairs of retrieving his property, as seen from the halakha that the thief's act of consecration or separation of truma or tithes is valid. This contradicts the opinion of Rabbi Shimon, as he holds that the thoughts of a thief do not render the hides susceptible to ritual impurity because he is not considered the owner of the hides. Granted, according to Ula, who says that all agree that if it is known that the owner despaired of recovering the property, the individual in possession of the items acquires them. Here too it is possible to explain that the Mishnah is discussing a case where it is known that the owner despaired. But according to Rabbah, who says that even in cases where it is known that the owner is despaired, there is also a dispute, in accordance with whose opinion is this Braita written. It is not written in accordance with the opinion of the rabbis, and it is not in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. The Gemara answers here too. When the Braita mentions a thief, it is actually referring to an armed bandit who is considered a robber because he steals using force and aggression. And it is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Shimon, who holds that the victim of a robber despairs of recovering his property. The Gemara asks, if so, this case of a thief is identical to the case of a robber, and there is no reason for the Braita to teach the same halacha twice. The Gemara answers that the Braita wishes to teach the halacha with regard to two different types of robbers. The Gemara offers an alternative explanation, and if you wish, say instead that this Braita is referring to an actual thief, and it is written in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, as it is taught in a Braita that Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi said, a thief is like a robber.